Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Our 6:30 p.m. Monday, June 20th, 2022 regular meeting is now in session at 8:16 p.m. So again, thank you for your patience. We do have a long agenda tonight. As a side note to our P&Z members throughout tonight, instead of each one of us speaking each time, we may jump into one of those nights where we just say, does anybody have any comments to add? And we'll move a little faster that way. But all P&Z members, Planning and Zoning Commission members, are present tonight, all 7. So that brings us to item number 3, which is the introduction of the agenda and the format of the hearing. And Mr. Martin Griggs, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair. So tonight we'll have a call to order for each item, followed by a staff report, and then the applicant will have their opportunity to make presentation. Following that, we'll have public comment in either support or opposition to the project. At that time, please state your name and address for the record, be brief and to the point within a 3-minute time frame. After that, commission and staff will have their discussion. The commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request, or to table the item. City Council hearings for the zone change and conditional use permit cases will be on July 11th. So on an order of agenda, we'll have 4 plats that are on the consent agenda. Then for new business, we will have a replat for Kirby Crossing, a plat for Massey Oaks, or a final plat for Massey Oaks Section 1, a final plat for Massey Oaks Section 2. Then we'll have a zone change request for neighborhood services to single-family residential R4, a CUP for a manufacturing fabrication, processing, and assembly use within the mixed-use science technology district in the lower Kirby area. Then we'll have an auto repair minor use in the Shadow Creek Ranch PD, and then an expansion to an existing liquor store use within the Shadow Creek Ranch PD. With that, we will move it back to you, Chair, to go over the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone wishing to pull any items off the consent agenda? I do have one if no one else does. No one? All right. I would ask that we remove item E as in Edward. I need to recuse myself from that one. So if we could pull that, it would be much appreciated. With nothing further, motion and a second, please, for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. For approval.
For approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item E. Thank you.
Can we go ahead and remotion?
Remotion. So moved. Of the consent approval of the consent agenda absent item E.
Thank you all. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Measure passes 7-0. And then we move to items removed from the consent agenda, and I will step out.
Move quickly. Consideration of possible action plat 22-49 preliminary plat of the enclave at Massey Oaks. Legal description, subdivision of 25.22 acres of land. General location south of Old Massey Ranch Road. This was in the consent agenda, was pulled. Do I have any discussion from commissioners? No discussion. Do I have a motion to approve item E?
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Earls.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We will bring Chairman Huertas back in.
Thank you. And so that brings us to new business, item Roman numeral 6. And the first order of business, we have consideration of possible action plat 22-51, a replat of Kirby Crossing Section 2. And this is a request by GRD Pearland LLC and Merritt Huddleston of Elevation Land Solutions, the applicants, on behalf of New Broadway LTD, the owner, for approval of a partial replat of Kirby Crossing Section 2, combining lots 6 and 7, thus creating one lot on 2.8083 acres of land along Kirby Drive, the general location being 3020 Kirby Drive in Pearland. A motion for approval, please.
So moved.
Commissioner Ricks, second.
Staff report, please.
Chair, let me hand it over to Florence to provide the staff report. Florence, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Florence Boaku with the Planning Division. And what you have before you is a replat of Kirby Crossing Section 2. And this will be the second replat, is to create one lot on 2.8 acres by combining lots 6 and 7. And it's part of the Pearland Town Center PD. And so staff has evaluated this based on conformance to various plans within the city and has determined that it meets all the various plans, the comprehensive plan, thoroughfare plan, and the UDC. This is the zoning map of the property. It is part of the Pearland Town Center PD, and it's surrounded by the PD on all sides. Then the future land use, it's a major retail node with a small portion with an underlying land use of public and semi-public use. And so this is the original plat showing the two lots to be combined as one. The goal is to develop this into an office. And so this is the new plat showing some of the public easements and utility easements relocated and the two lots combined into one. And that concludes staff reports. Oh. And so based on that, staff is recommending approval of the replats. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That brings us to the portion where we've heard from staff. Applicant presentation. Is the applicant here tonight?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe the applicant is here.
All right. Well, that made it shorter. How about persons wishing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against? I do not have a speaker's card filled out, and for the rest of the evening, if you wish to speak, please do get one from outside. You can speak first and fill one out later if you need to, but we will need one for the record. Seeing no one making a move towards the wishing to speak for or against, we'll go straight into staff, commissioners, and applicant discussion without the applicant. Commissioners, any comments? Wow. This is part of, just to understand, this is part of the PD for the town center.
Correct.
A long time coming. All right. With all that in the record, all those for this project or for the approval, we have a motion up for approval on the table. All those wishing to vote for, please signify by raising your right hand. Measure passes 7-0. That brings us to item number 2, and for the record, items number 2 and 3, I'll be recusing myself, and I'm going to go that way because there's snacks, and you don't need a diabetic near snacks.
New business item 2, consideration possible action plat 22-54, final plat of Massey Oaks Section 1. A request of Andrew Lang, of BGE, the applicant on behalf of Massey Oaks Development LP owner for the approval of the preliminary plat of Massey Oaks Section 1, creating 91 single-family lots and 2 reserves on plus or minus 27.45 acres of land located at the south side of Old Massey Ranch Road, east of the American Canal. General location, south side of Old Massey Ranch Road, east of the American Canal. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
So move to approve.
So motion to approve. Yes, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Do I? Yes. All right. Let me get my cheat sheet here. All right.
Who's the second on that one?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Eisenberg. I think we moved to staff report.
Yes, sir. Once again, Florence, take it away.
Just a point of correction before I start my staff report. So the applicant is R.G. Miller, being represented by Chad Miller. Thank you. BGE was the previous applicant on the preliminary plat. So for this final plat, it's a final plat of Massey Oaks Section 1, creating 91 lots and 2 reserves. The average lot size is about 6,600 square feet, and this is part of the larger Massey Oaks plan development. Again, staff has reviewed this and determined that it meets the comprehensive plan, it meets the PD requirements, as well as our unified development plan and thoroughfare plan. It was previously approved in 2021. So this is the zoning map showing the location of Section 1 south of Old Massey Ranch Road. It's part of the PD, moving on. And it has an underlying land use of suburban residential, which supports the proposed single-family development. And so just an overview of changes that have occurred between the preliminary and final plat. This was provided by the applicant and also observed by staff. The north boundary line, which is along Old Massey Ranch Road, was slightly adjusted. The rear lot line for a few lots 23 to 30 was moved. And then there were additional street lights to meet street light separation requirements. And so this is the proposed plat, final plat. It's not very different from the preliminary plat. And so based on meeting all the requirements and satisfying the conditions of the plan development, staff is recommending approval of the final plat. Thank you, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you. Next item would be the applicant presentation.
Hello, I'm Troy Nixon with R.J. Miller Engineers. Chad Miller has COVID right now, so he was unable to make it, but I am representing that plat, and I'm here to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions? All right, we're going to open the floor up for anyone wishing to speak for or against. I'm not aware that we have anyone signed up on the green sheets. We have a first, anyone for or against, second, third? All right, hearing and seeing none. We'll go to staff, commission, applicant discussion. Anything from the commissioners? No? Anything further from staff?
If I could just make one clarification or make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. Mr. Nixon? So with the northern property line shifting south?
That north property line, it shifted south only maybe about 1.5 feet.
Okay.
And the reason was because the alignment for the future CR 100 widening.
And that's what my question was going to be. Have we accounted for it? Because I believe that that road has a preliminary plat, but it doesn't have a final plat approved yet, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and that difference has been accounted for?
That difference has, yeah, when we finally got good survey information in there, the way it's going to cross the existing bridge or the widening that's kind of to the, basically on the northeast corner of this property, there's that bridge. So the way they had to come down, they had to adjust that south right-of-way line a little bit.
I just didn't want to
I was
leave you a
thinking for that.
2-foot gap between one road and the edge of their property.
No. That north property line of Section 1 is the southern right-of-way of the future widening for CR 100.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 3 on the new business, consideration possible action plat 22-55, final plat of Massey Oaks Section 2. And what's the new owner? It's a request of, it's not Andrew Lane,
Chad Miller.
Chad Miller. The applicant on behalf of Massey Oaks Development LP, owner, for the approval of the final plat of Massey Oaks Section 2, creating 66 single-family lots and 7 reserves on plus or minus 33.97 acres of land located in the southwest quadrant of Old Massey Ranch Road and Harkey Road. General location, southwest quadrant of Old Massey Ranch Road and Harkey Road. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Boswell, second.
I have a first and a second. Go to staff report.
Thank you. So this is the final plat of Massey Oaks Section 2, creating 66 lots and 8 reserves. The average lot size is about 8,255 square feet, and this is part of the Massey Oaks plan development. Staff has looked at this, and it conforms with the comprehensive plan, our thoroughfare plan, the PD requirements, as well as our unified development plan. This is a view of the zoning map showing that the project is part of the Massey Oaks plan development with an underlying land use of suburban residential, which supports the proposed use. So again, just an overview of changes. There's been a slight increase in the acreage. It's about 0.2 acres. Again, there were additional street lights to meet street light separation requirements. And then there was an increase in the number of reserves from 7 reserves to 8 reserves. So this is the resultant plan. Again, it's not very different from what was approved at the preliminary plat stage. And staff is recommending approval based on the fact that it meets the PD requirements. There's an executed subdivision improvement agreement, and it conforms to all the requirements of a final plat. Thank you. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. Once again, do we have applicant presentation?
I don't have a presentation, but I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have any any persons wishing to speak for or against this particular item? Going once, going twice, hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on to the next. Staff, commission, applicant discussion. Anyone else have anything on the commissioner's side? No? Staff, everybody good? All right. I have a first and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. I hope Chad recovers from COVID quickly. We'll let Henry run up here. We are on item 4 on the agenda, which will be a zone change application.
Thank you. Item 4 is the consideration possible action, a zone change application, number 22-08. And this is a public hearing request by Anup Pandey, applicant, on behalf of Hill House Holdings, the owner, for approval of a zone change for approximately 4.8787 acres of land from Neighborhood Services, which is NS, district to single-family residential R4 district. The general location of the property is 2700 block of Hill House Road, Pearland, Texas. Now that I've read the purpose of the hearing, first we'll start off with staff report, and then we'll go to applicant presentation.
Thank you, Chair. For this staff report, Sunil will be providing that information for you. Or hold on.
Sorry, can I go ahead and get a motion? I
Sure thing.
skipped a step. Motion for approval, please.
I have motion for approval. Sorry.
Commissioner Earls, I second.
Staff report, thank you for hanging on.
No worries. Dean, take it away.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission members. So this is the zoning change request for approximately 4.8 acres of land from neighborhood service to single-family residential R4 to build a gated residential subdivision. Property is located south of a single-family subdivision and north of a general business zone commercial development. This parcel is located at the west of Hill House and north of Broadway. The aerial map shows the location and current zoning of the property. And this is the map of a future land use map. And as you can see, it shows that the property is located in retail, office, and services. And these are the pictures from the view of the subject property from the Hill House Road, and also both of them are from the Hill House Road. The criteria for approval, as you can see, the property is the proposed zone change is not consistent with the comprehensive plan as in future land use plan. The property is located along Hill House, and Hill House is designated as a local residential street. The property has not been platted, but has access to water and sewer line. Property is, the proposed zone change is not in conformance with the adopted comprehensive plan, future land use map. However, the proposed zone change is accordance with the existing or proposed plan, and also there is no other factors that will substantially affect the public health, safety, or general welfare. Proposed zoning zone change is not supported by the underlying future land use designation of office, retail, and services. The subject property abuts non-residential zone properties to the south, and also, as you can see, the proposed zone change will cause the property in the south to dedicate 25 to 30 feet residential buffer. And currently the property is on a neighborhood service and no buffer is required. So that's why staff is unable to recommend approval of the proposed zone change from neighborhood service to single-family residential. And that concludes the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The applicant, I'm assuming that's you standing up there?
Yes.
All right, if you would give your presentation, and please include your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Ahmed Ansari, 114 West Drew, Houston 77006. Can I have the screen, please? I'm one of the principals of Hill House Holdings, the owner of the property. So we're proposing a gated housing development known as Hill House Estates. So just a little about us. So I'm also with Equitrust. We have real estate development projects all over Houston. We've done about 50 in the last 5 years or so. So the proposed development, so right now we have 5 acres of land currently zoned as neighborhood services. We're proposing to get it to R4 zoning. We want to construct 28 houses there in an upscale community, gated community. This is the property we have here. So you can see to the north we have single-family homes. To the east we have a single-family home. To the south there is commercial, and to the east there's a mix of. To the west there's a mix of commercial and residential. To give you a broader scope of where it is in the whole Pearland area, it's just off of Broadway on the eastern side of 288. So this is kind of one of the site plans that we had, a little different than the initial one that we had presented, but we are going to have a detention pond up front, and then the 20 the lots, therefore. So this is what we had originally submitted. So it kind of depends on how many, what the detention ends up being and so forth. So we haven't fully finalized our plat yet. So this is kind of an inspiration of the type of housing that we want to build. It's going to be traditional style homes with some modern architectural touches. So we're going to have a gated community. You're going to have a private lake with fountain, paved streets with curbs, dedicated areas for nature and parks and recreation. So one thing that I do want to point out is that there is a very large, dense, thick, row of trees over here, which we're going to try to preserve, so that way that we can, besides even just the required distance boundary, we will have a natural boundary with trees as well, which will kind of help the look of the community and separation from commercial below. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. We'll try to retain those trees to the south. So right now it's zoned as neighborhood services, but as you can see, the property is almost 500 feet from Broadway. So I think and we're right abutted to residential on almost 3 sides, essentially. And so for that reason, I'm not sure if retail or offices or services may necessarily be the best use for that type of land. Like I said, we're right around several houses, Sunrise Lakes, a very large residential development to the north. And so I feel like, for the neighbors, they would rather have single-family homes as their neighbors than something that's commercial. So in my opinion, I think it would be residential use would be the best use. There were a couple of comments that the Planning and Zoning Commission did make. First comment was that they didn't think that it was supported by the future land use designation. I kind of talked about that earlier, which I think actually, in my opinion, it is better used for residential. As for the property to the south, they said that they had a concern that if we were to change our zoning from NS to R4, it would cause the neighbor to the south to have a 25 or 30-foot buffer. And if you can see here, there's almost they have almost 450 feet. So a 25-foot or 30-foot buffer would be a very small, minuscule amount of part of their land. And besides that, I'm actually in negotiations to purchase the land to the south, but that will not be for residential. I'm planning to do a commercial development there. So the other thing that also in the comments, they did also say that in the staff's opinion, that the R4 zoning would be a more appropriate neighbor for the Sunrise Lake subdivision than commercial development. So I guess there's a little bit mixed feelings here, but overall, I think, in my opinion, the balance weighs more towards residential development. And that's pretty much what I have at this point in time. Love to get any feedback or comments.
Thank you for those comments. Very much. All right. Do we have any persons in the audience wishing to speak for or against? Pinky promise? Please, by all means. And I'm totally kidding about that. And again, if you would please state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Andrea Holmes, and I live at 8814 Sun Haven Lane in Pearland, 77584, and I am exactly, my property will back up against this. I'm not much of a political person, but I did get this in the mail, and my husband and I are here tonight. We agree that we would prefer to have residential back up to my back property. That land has been open and vacant for the 18 years that I have lived there, It has helped us in Harvey, so we do have concerns about the drainage because we did not flood in Harvey at all. But that big land piece of property behind us has had all kinds of junk on it. It's been an awful area. We do know that there are a lot of birds that live in those trees that he had said, so we are pleased to hear that those trees will stay. But as a homeowner who will immediately back up to this, we would prefer to have residential than commercial development, because we have been through there's like a hotel that's there now. So over the years that I've lived in that subdivision, yeah, Candlewood Suites is there. We do have concerns about it being, 2 stories looking into our backyard, but that would be in any subdivision that you live in. But for 18 years, we've been pretty blessed to have nobody behind us. But when we saw this, we do agree, we don't want it at all, but if we had to have it, I think we'd prefer to be residential than have business. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Going once. I wonder if we can get a green form. Or, oh, you're fine. We'll get it. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? And seeing no movement thereof, that takes us to item number 5, or 6, which is staff, commission, and applicant discussion. Commissioners, this is a zone change, so please let's.
I'll go ahead and start. Number one, the property owner that spoke, I appreciate her being here. It's nice to hear that someone behind the existing requested property does have a logical discussion regarding what's going to be built directly behind her house. Many times people come in with their hair on fire. I think we've already seen it tonight, and it's literally not in my backyard, this is a vacant piece of developable land, so you're going to have to build something. Neighborhood Services would open this thing up to lots of options that could go there. So I don't normally, and I stated this earlier, like taking commercial products offline and making them residential. I hate passing the burden of a tax on to an individual homeowner versus a landowner, a developer, larger commercial property. However, in this particular case, because this land is a dead-end piece of property, and it is pretty far off of 518. I know there's been a lot of folks that have looked at the property across the street over the years, a hospital one time, I believe, and others. So Neighborhood Services, with someone open to working with the existing structure of the land with the trees, is very refreshing to hear. I did have a question on the hotel corner piece. I noticed one of the elevations you showed that one, you had the detention pond in the back is kind of a buffer. And then the current one, I know it's nothing. It's a concept, in these, if I was in 12 or 13 or maybe even 14 or 11 and you had the hotel literally in your backyard, that would be a difficult piece for me to purchase. And then you mentioned recreational areas for, within the gated, and I don't see that. I know this is just a sketch with lines on it. It's nothing that to hang your hat on, but so I was curious about that. So I would be okay with rezoning this. Normally not my perfect decision, and I appreciate staff's discussion about it as well, because I do think it's very difficult to take a commercial piece like this and put it into an R4 cluster opportunity. But in this particular case, I think this one might be one of a million that might fit. So I as it looks, I'm positive on it. But I did have a question again about the hotel right there.
That is a concern. The hotel's existing. There are houses abutting the hotel at present. So we'll try to conserve whatever trees we can in the area to kind of give us a natural barrier. But that's the reason why we were considering the detention pond at the end of the street as a barrier. But I think it'd also be a nice beautification point. So that's the reason why we were considering bringing it to the front. So we're still open to, this is all very preliminary at this point in time.
And then the recreational piece you mentioned.
Kind of in where the detention pond is around, that we'll have some green space out besides the detention pond.
Commissioner Henricks here. I'm not opposed to this becoming R4. I would say that maybe split the difference in the buffer, 15 and 15. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe they can create part of that buffer themselves in this neighborhood. To be fair to the property that's to the south of them, unless he purchases it, and then that's just, he knows that's what he's going to give up. So outside of that, I would not think to go down this road, and never thought to go down this road to use any commercial or neighborhood service products. So I really don't see it as neighborhood services this far off of 518. So again, I'm not opposed to the R4.
Commissioner Earls, I think this absolutely fits from it being neighborhood services, being residential. It's like a natural progression of where it is. It still leaves the other zone existing in front of this, or south of this property, which makes sense and helps as well. I personally would like to see the detention pond, excuse my voice, the detention pond at the rear of the property. I think that's a better fit. I don't know about the sizing. I know this is preliminary, if you size it or not, but again, I'd much rather just see it towards the end. But I do like it. I'd be a yes.
I agree with all the previous comments. I think it's a great fit. I think changing it from neighborhood services to residential is perfect, because just from a personal standpoint, I probably wouldn't turn off the road and go up there to retail or restaurants or anything else. You know, I'm going to look for something on the main thoroughfare. So I would be in support of, and I thank the homeowners, that the property owners that came in, the neighbors came in and supported it.
I appreciate staff's work that they put in on it, but I'm not going to rehash everything. I agree with all the fellow commissioners. The only thing that you made the statement, you went from we're going to keep the trees to we're planning on trying to keep the trees.
We want to keep as many as we can, but some of it will interfere with the construction and how big the backyards can be. But that's going to be a selling point for us, so we want to keep as many as we can.
Okay.
Commissioner Boswell, I'm a bit conflicted. I do appreciate residential, but I do feel Pearland has enough traditional houses, so not something I'm really excited about in that department. But with our comprehensive planning, we've discussed the need for entertainment and restaurants in the area due to the limited real estate that we still have within the city. With that being said, I don't think 500 feet off of Broadway to be terribly far for someone that, if they did want an entertainment or a restaurant option, to go an additional 500 feet to where this property is located and be able to use the property for that purpose. I do appreciate the citizen that spoke to, if she, choosing the lesser of two evils, nothing, but if something has to be there, then she would prefer residential. So I am conflicted, and I mean, once you zone change, that's it. That's what it turns into. I would probably be a no. I would side with staff on this one. Thank you.
Thank you all. My comments are, first I have a question. And this is kind of a hard question. I may be overcomplicating it. Is this site plan here that's shown on the screen, is that something that would meet most of the criteria for Pearland?
I would say that staff has not analyzed this site plan, and that the site plan will not be a part of the approval for this zone change.
Correct. Thank you. And for full disclosure, I'm familiar with this parcel just from a searching for builders that want to come into Pearland. Some of them being townhome products. This parcel does make sense for something like that, something like this. I very much appreciate, we call them the abutter maps, those abutting 200 feet around, that you took the time, your husband took the time to come out tonight and share your thoughts. And it is very, very unusual for someone to come in here and say, I'm for this project because what it's zoned currently is a little bit more intense than this, and so I like this. It's unusual. It's refreshing. Your comments were very refreshing tonight. I'm assuming you heard all the other ones earlier, and we didn't have that. So I very much, like Commissioner Dansby said, very much appreciate your comments. And those were honest thoughts and logical thoughts. So my hat's off to you all. This is a parcel that I would call a transition parcel. It isn't, within the 350 feet of a major thoroughfare, which if you put in a typical shopping center and you look at some of these other ones, they're 300 to 350 feet in depth. Then you have a second tier of properties before you get into residential. And sometimes it is residential that needs to come back. Sometimes it's multifamily or the townhomes, like I was saying, a little more intense use than, say, a typical residential neighborhood. My one concern is some of our city rules have not, is the right word, matured, yet to fit some of these projects in the infills that we have to do. When it's a virgin piece of land, you can come in here and do what you want, and you see how these sections are all laid out. But we have a rule that over X amount of houses, you have to have a secondary drive. I think, though, you're at 20 to 24, and you don't hit that criteria, and I believe that's 29. So I just talked myself out of an issue, which I'm very happy for. Secondly, when I looked at this parcel, I looked at buying the northern portion of the southern tract to combine them or to give cross-access into that parcel, just to give myself an emergency exit like you saw in the other parcels tonight. Again, to hit, we have been discussing in our comprehensive plan discussions and the revision thereof, we've been discussing diverse housing. I think this is a perfect opportunity for it. At least it's R4 and not the typical R1 and R2 that historically we have pushed as a city and as a board and as a staff, and that, which came from the council and their policy making. So with all that being said, I'm for it. I heard staff's comments. I think they were very logical, but I think for all the reasons everyone here has stated, and for the small contribution I made, I think I'm for it. So if there's nothing else further, let's vote. We have many more items tonight. Anyone? All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Measure passes 6-1. And thank you again for showing up.
Thank you.
That puts us to item number 5, which is commission input and discussion. And please allow me to clarify, the next 3 items are what we call CUPs, conditional use permits. Oh, thank you. And in a conditional use permit, we do not vote. We simply discuss. So there won't be a motion and then a motion for approval. It'll just be, we're going to open it up for discussion. We will still go through the same sequence of a staff presentation, the applicant presentation, and then persons wishing to speak for or against, but we will not be voting at the end of all that. So with that said, item again number 5 is commission input and discussion, and this is again a conditional use permit, CUP, 22-14. And this is a public hearing, a request by Lisa M. Dabrowski, I hope I say this right, Shetchi, Windrose Service application on behalf of Gold Knight Holdings, LP, owner, for approval of conditional use permit for manufacturing, fabrication, processing, and assembly, other use on approximately 24.851 acres of land within the mixed-use science/technology district of Clear Creek Spectrum Planned Development, the general location being the northeast corner of Kirby Drive and North Spectrum Boulevard. And we are open for discussion. Staff's report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So for this one, I'm going to hand it off to Mohammed to present the staff report. Mohammed, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So this conditional use permit request is for approval for manufacturing, fabrication, processing, and assembly, other use within the mixed-use Science Technology District of the Clear Creek Spectrum Planned Development, that's a long name, on approximately 24.8 acres of land located at the northeast corner of Kirby Drive and North Spectrum. Staff has received one phone call, so we did notification for this CUP, and we did receive one phone call requesting more information from the development, the existing development to the north, which is Andrews Hauser, and staff anticipates that they will be represented either in this meeting or the city council meeting on this request. Moving on to the zoning map, as you can see, the property is zoned plant unit development. That's the Clear Creek Spectrum PD. And as I stated before, it's within a sub-district called the Mixed-Use Science/Technology District. And I'll get that in a little bit. Next slide is the future land use plan. This is an exhibit that shows the property is designated within the Lower Kirby Urban Center. That is a designation for diverse regional destination that includes significant employment uses along Kirby Drive and then transitioning to light industrial uses to the west, as well as regional retail along highway frontages. Here will be the tollway and 288, and a pedestrian-oriented mixed use core anchoring the district. The goal of the Lower Kirby Urban Center is to promote a range of development opportunities with an overall urban design, street network, drainage infrastructure framework. So this proposed use appears to be inconsistent based on the description of the vision of the Lower Kirby with this kind of designation. Moving to the next slide, this is that planned development district. This is the regulating plan for the Clear Creek Spectrum planned development. And as you can see, this whole PD is divided into sub-district A, B, and C. This subject property is located within the B sub-district, which is the Sciences Technology district. And this one has some specific, has a specific vision, which to include technology. And just from the name itself, you can tell a lot about it. So just wanted to bring that to your attention so that you're aware of where this fits into that overall development. Next slide is this is just an aerial map. And again, I'll just point out the Andrews Hauser is the development that's to the north. That's a fairly recent development that was built on the north side, fronting on the tollway. To the east is a medical technology development. I'm sorry, to the west. To the east is a developed property that's kind of towards the promenade development that we talked about in the workshop last month. And then to the south, you also have some technology businesses as well south of Spectrum Drive. So next slide is the proposed development. And again, this proposal is to develop two industrial buildings that you can see on the left side of the screen. And then there's another building that was shown as part of this site plan that will not be part of this CUP. that's for a distribution use. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the two buildings that are closer to Kirby Drive. Again, totaling 420,000 square feet with 32 square feet outside storage. The storage area is located between the two buildings. And also there's an office, a two-story office building with surface parking. This is all within a 24-acre piece of land. The future occupant of this development is called SNS, and it specializes in the coating industry that is providing service to the oil, power generation, or automotive industries. I think I've covered the overall site plan. Next slide is some renderings showing the proposed office portion of the development. Again, this is something provided by the applicant of what they intend to do with the office portion, the front portion of the development. We really don't see much of the rest of the building. Next slide. Again, that's appears to be just the front portion. It's just the office portion. Next slide. Again, this is also another view, just from a different side. Next slide is, so these are street views. Again, to just kind of give you an idea where this development is. Again, the first one on the left side of the screen is looking directly towards the site. This is looking from Kirby Drive. Actually, I think that's a Spectrum. You're right. And then the one on the right side, yes, these are the Kirby Drive sites. That's also from the Kirby, but looking towards the Spectrum. Next slide. So this is what we call the conformity table. Again, just going back, this proposed use is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, the vision for that lower Kirby, and as well as the future land use plan. It is conforming with the thoroughfare plan, with these streets, Spectrum and Kirby, already developed with the right width and everything. So it's conforming in that regard. The UDC staff will still have to review in further detail and make sure that they do meet all of the requirements of the PD and the base zoning. And utilities and infrastructure, although water and sewer are accessible, they're available within the same area. However, there are some concern about pretreatment of water. We've got the interim assistant director for public works here with us in the meeting. Lori, she's going to be able to answer and address any question that you have on that regard. Lori Rodriguez. Moving on to the approval criteria, we have 7 approval criteria for conditional use permits. The proposed use meets 2 of those criteria right away. There are 2 that do not meet, which are the comprehensive plan, the future land use, as well as whether the proposed use as presented actually also minimize all the adverse effects or not, and would not. And there are 3 that could be met with some additional mitigation measures, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit in the later slide. Next is the staff recommendation. So based on all of these issues, and we're going to talk a little bit, Laura's going to talk about the pretreatment part. Staff does not recommend approval of this request. However, if the commission feels good about this development and wants to move forward, the staff is still have some recommendation for additional conditions to be added. And these include that all buildings on the property shall be developed in the same manner and substantial conformance to the renderings that are submitted by the applicant. We're still needing to see some additional renderings and elevations for the rest of the development, as mentioned previously. Also, additional vegetative screen should be located within an 8-foot landscape buffer shall be provided to screen the two sides, the north and east side. Then the third one is that the truck court that is located between the buildings also shall be screened from view of a spectrum with some additional screening walls. And the last condition is that the proposed outside storage that's located between the two buildings also shall be screened. So without this screening, without this additional vegetative measures, it will be hard for staff to mitigate the negative effects of all of the activities that will take place outside and inside the building. The last slide is, talking about, the pretreatment part. I'm not going to get into that a lot. Martin and Lori talk about it, and then also just having additional renderings for the rest of the building so that we make sure that the facade and aesthetic of this development is integral with this spectrum district. And that's all I have. Thank you.
So before we hand it back over to you, I want to provide some additional discussion and introduce Lori to go through some of her concerns on the pretreatment program. So as mentioned on the slide, and giving Lori a little bit of a precursor, if this development does move forward and is granted approval by City Council, then the city would need to work towards establishing an approved pretreatment program. And I think with that, it is appropriate to bring up Lori to the podium and have her kind of introduce what that means, because it is one of those in all capital, what that fully entails and what that means. So, Lori?
There it goes. Hi, y'all. My name is Lori Rodriguez. I'm our interim assistant director for Public Works, and I directly oversee our a pretreatment program. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, pretreatment is basically monitoring the wastewater, any type of processed wastewater or just wastewater in general that goes through our collection system to our treatment plants. And they monitor it to make sure that there's nothing harmful that's going to harm the system or that's going to harm the treatment plant or bypass the process completely and end up into our environment and causing harm to the environment. So our team has looked at this industry, and they do have a processed wastewater that is going to be a large volume and would require the city to develop what's called an approved pretreatment program. Currently, we have a monitoring program, and the only difference is between an approved program and a monitoring. We're not required right now by the state to have to do local limits. Local limits basically are set limits that you have for an industry that tells an industry how much of a pollutant that they can discharge into our system. So we had some concerns regarding the volume of wastewater. It was projected was going to be about 40,000 gallons per day of processed wastewater, as well as the nature of the wastewater process was going to contain metals, heavy metals, and cyanide, which are currently very limited as to what our current ordinance allows. So I guess with that, I'll just let y'all ask questions, and and we can go from there.
Thank you. Does that conclude staff's report then?
Yeah, at this point, I think it would be back to you to introduce the applicant for their presentation.
Absolutely. So that goes to the next item, which is the applicant presentation. Thank you for being here, and if you would again state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm not Lisa. I'm Andrew, here for Windrose Land Services, 11111 Richmond Avenue, number 150 in Houston. And we appreciate what staff has said. We appreciate the effort in kind of going over this use with us. This has been a property, as I'm sure you all are aware, that's been vacant since 2004. It's had a couple people come and go on it, but the most important thing to keep in mind here is that this planned development was made for this type of use. You can kind of see around it. There's other manufacturing, other large footprint, kind of light industrial uses. They have a better face on them. They look a lot better. They have a better visibility from the street. And that's kind of what the client is going for. He wants to put something in there that's definitely compatible. He wants to kind of come into the community, do something that, you know, the property was advertised for. The PD was specifically made for this. And so one of the things that I think that came out of the tour that you all went on and maybe some staff visits was possibly some confusion about what this group is doing. And so when you hear plating or you hear coating, it's just kind of hard to wrap your mind around what that looks like. And I'm sure there'll be some more comments on what that is. But it's essentially taking someone else's product, like a piece of equipment, bringing it into your shop and coating it with something for transport, for protection, for what have you. But it's a very low intensity type of use. You're not, there's not like sparks flying everywhere. It's really just a coating operation. So in terms of intensity, we deal with quite a few of them. This is almost as low intensity as it gets. It does involve obviously some coating materials, but we'll get more into that later. We're okay with the conditions that staff outlined, except for number 3. I think if you all went on the tour, you could kind of see that each one of the truck bays on all the surrounding developments are not screened. It does have a very attractive front, but screening every single truck view is an overly broad application of that language. The additional shrubs, the additional landscaping, all the things that they're asking for, more renderings, more visuals is definitely okay with us, and we're more than happy to provide that. But I think trying to screen every truck, port from view is something that's going to be impossible in the end to do. And it's not something that's consistent with the other, businesses that are immediately adjacent to it. And just, again, coming from the development world, the industrial retail world, this is, very attractive project. We've tried to get people into this property before. We're looking at this part of town. Just the increased value, like the material that he's putting into the property is about $23 million worth of improvement costs. That doesn't, obviously, include all the sales tax, pro forma there. Doesn't include all the benefits for extra jobs and the cast off in that regard. But just in terms of the hard and fast costs, that leads to about $200,000 in additional tax revenue, just the hard costs. And so in terms of funding some of those things that the staff will need to do, I come from a city background. I used to be assistant public works director, planning director type guy. That's what you use to fund all that extra stuff that is needed, like the sampling programs and some of the things that come along with this type of use. And hopefully staff and all of us on the development team can talk about that between now and city council, kind of get more comfortable with it. But one of the great things about this type of development, a $20+ million facility, is it brings revenue to help offset some of those costs that the city's going to incur in terms of the impact to the system. So with that being said, I'm available for questions, and we have quite a few people from the development team that are here available for questions as well.
Thank you for that. And that brings us then to persons wishing to speak for or against. And I did have approximately 5, if not 6, speaker cards. All right. If you don't mind, if I have them in order here, unless you tell me who you are, and then I'll. If y'all have a certain order you want to go in, I'll.
Greg Andrews first.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. If you give your address for the record, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, sir. Greg Andrews, 5614 Nunn Street, Houston, Texas. I am the owner of the business. I am the 3rd generation owner. My grandfather started it 44 years ago. We want to bring 250 to 300 employees to Pearland. We're in the city of Houston now, and what has attracted us to Pearland is the exact structure that we're all going through tonight. In the city of Houston, there's no zoning. You never know who your neighbors are. We have sophisticated customers. Tesla, ExxonMobil, Shell, Schneider, those kind of electric companies, Powell Electric. And so, I want to get into a business park that defines who we are, and we're not having to explain ourselves to our customers from the area. A couple of city officials came in and visited our facility, and we toured them around. We are, we love the structure, and we are adamant about following the rules that you all present in front of us. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be, a pillar to the community, and I want to employ more people. We have jobs, for high school students all the way up to college graduates. So we kind of hit the spectrum across the board. And so I've got my team here tonight to answer any of your questions and concerns, but know that I want to do it the right way. My family's name is on this business, and I plan on, continuing it forward. I look forward to coming to Pearland.
Thank you for those comments.
Jeff Capel, 5614 Nunn Street, Houston, Texas. Also a Pearland resident. I have 2 kids in Pearland ISD. I have a vested interest in having a successful project, and I want to not only live and support Pearland restaurants and businesses, but I want to have my business in Pearland. There are some upgrades and some concerns with wastewater. We acknowledge that, but I think that's something we can certainly work through. There were some comments from staff about not having limits. I do disagree that the city of Pearland does not have limits on wastewater discharges. They're published in the code of regulations. So you already have something established. To give you an idea of the pretreatment, we treat our own waste. We create a solid waste stream, so we pull the heavy metals out of the wastewater, and what we discharge has to meet your limits. So it's not Pearland's not putting in a new system, new capital. It's a process of getting approved through the TCEQ. And the reason you haven't had to do that with some of your other industries and industrial bases, our industry is federally regulated, and the federal government pushes our federal regulations down to the TCEQ. So there is some work to be done. We acknowledge that, and we look forward to working with you guys to accomplish that. So I hope to work in Pearland one day.
Thank you for those comments.
Harry C. Berger, 2555 Central Parkway, 77092, which is Houston. Appreciate being able to address the commission. I'm the architect for the project, so I wanted to speak a little bit more on the aesthetics aspect of it. To the staff, we will be, of course, designing the other elevations and going much more forward with this project on the design aspect. We're excited to do this project in Pearland. The plan development criteria that I reviewed was quite extensive, and to me a lot of owners or purchasers of this property would shy away because of the amount of screening, landscaping, articulation, materials. I'm proud to be here on behalf of the owner who's made a commitment to, that's not a problem. We want to meet all that. So I think at this aspect, they're not asking for any variances or changes from the criteria. One thing I also wanted to point out that as staff talked about additional trees and landscaping, if you go back to the site plan, we're proposing to save a lot of trees in the southwest corner of the tract, if you're familiar with it. And that was not mentioned, but that is part of the initial preliminary site plan. So, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And I'm assuming you're Robert.
Yes.
All right. So.
Yes, Robert Farney, 3463 Woodbine Place, Pearland, Texas. So while I am working on this project as the civil engineer, I also live in the community and will have no issues with this, obviously. Overall, I'm just going to reiterate everything that the owner and architect have said. we're in full agreement. We'll be dealing with staff with any landscape buffer that they would bring up. We have no issues with that. We'll definitely work on the screening with the owner, architect, and everyone involved. But in general, I'm just here to answer any questions that the council or anyone else has regarding anything for this.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, go ahead.
One last thing I'd like to add. Tool Flow, just south of the property, is a current supplier to our company. The darling of the neighborhood, Indris and Hauser, I have spoken with them. They're excited about us coming, and we've worked on how a driveway would work, but they are also, we have their valves and controls in our plant. And Dover Manufacturing, just across the way on Kirby, is a customer of ours. So we do business in the area.
Thank you for that. I'll ask for more persons wishing to speak for, and then I'm going to move into staff, commission, and applicant discussion. So thank you again. We may have some follow-up questions if you don't mind. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this particular item? Anyone? If not, then let's move to the next step, and that's item number 6 in our little script here, and that's the staff, commission, applicant discussion. Commissioners?
Andrew Rose, I have a question just for clarity. Previously, you mentioned that we have to put in a pre-treatment facility. You mentioned, sir, that we do not have to put one in. I'm sorry, can you go to the microphone, please?
What is required is a TPDES approved pretreatment. And what that involves is the city, as she mentioned, will have to have local limits on discharge limitations for your customers. And the city will wind up doing more sampling and analysis of your wastewater stream.
So it's,
and I would invite Lisa, if I'm misunderstanding it, she can more than correct me.
No, that's correct. That's exactly what it would entail. The TCQ would require, under an approved program, TCQ would require the city to come in and evaluate not just the treatment plant that they would discharge to, but all 5 of our treatment plants. So it's a total of the whole city, not just where they discharge. And so that would require extensive testing of the influent water, which is the wastewater that comes into the treatment plant, testing our sludge that the plant generates, and testing the wastewater that leaves the treatment plant. In addition to also testing the source of the process discharge, so with their processed wastewater, and that is cost that's incurred on the city to have to do all that testing, as well as having to hire a consultant to help us go through that process and do all the reporting that's required to the state for developing those limits.
So I would also add your immediate neighbors, Stafford, Sugarland, Rosenberg, South Houston, all have this.
because of the need, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And where you're located now in Houston, will that facility still remain open?
No, sir.
Okay. And when we ask your neighbors, how neighborly were you, what will they say?
You can do a drive-by of 5614 Nunn Street, and you'll notice we have the most beautiful facilities in the neighborhood.
Okay. That's all for me. Thank you.
All right. How did y'all find this property? As a buyer of this property?
I was looking for new parcels of land, and I came across this and got in front of the Economic Development Council, and they've pursued us since.
Okay. So they pursued you. You're past chairman of the PEDC here. So they pursued you to bring your business here, knowing full well what the business was. I'm sure they did their research. They're not, I know them.
Can't speak for them.
Yeah, I understand. You're doing a good job. $23 million facility, 200 to 250 employees. They're going to key off on the employees, which is always the thing. How many jobs does it bring to the area? You're checking all the boxes. You're doing exactly what they want. I asked staff what's changed because Matt's not here, Buchanan's not here, Brian Malone's not here to answer these questions, which I wasn't aware this was going to be an issue, and we got the agendas on Friday. So I would say that the problem I have with this is if they were pursued and we've got this something called a research tech campus character zone. What the heck is that? Did we make that up? I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm just asking because you're telling me that a research tech campus character zone is a drawing that we saw earlier, I guess. And I was on PEDC and never heard that. We brought in Dover, we brought in Lonza, all those companies when I was there. They came in and were pursued and brought in because the number one thing is the number of jobs they brought. And now all of a sudden we're telling a landowner and a property owner and a business, we don't want you here because now all of a sudden we have to pre-treat or check on, hire some more staff or something. I'm about to go nuts because you're looking at $23 million in property. Are you getting any tax abatements from the PEDC of any kind to build this?
We have to move past this point first, but I'm a small amount.
Okay. So in essence, there may or may not be anything to offset. So the city's gonna net the tax, inventory tax, all the other tax. I believe it's Harris County, so goes to Harris County and a different area there. But now all of a sudden we're going to pull back because of something that Research Tech Campus Character Zone, because it doesn't fit with Lonza or the medical pharmaceutical company. I know that property's been vacant. I know it's been sitting there for a while. We built that infrastructure there. We put those roads in. We paid for all those items that are there. All the street lights that went in, all that stuff. That land was dead land for years, and it didn't go anywhere. And now all of a sudden, we found somebody that we want to build this facility is going to bring 200 to 250 jobs, and half of them live in Pearland that run this company. And I can't understand what has changed. I mean, maybe in a perfect world, we'd like to get another Lonza, and it's this beautiful Canadian or Switzerland company in their case that comes in and builds this, $200 million facility. But again, we've got land behind that the city owns that's vacant, that's been sitting there that they had to consolidate, and it's going to be part of the Bass Pro, or whatever they're calling that now. And there's still land available on the other side behind Dover, on the other side of the road. And no offense, some of the property owners are difficult. Don't get me wrong. Everybody thinks their property is the best property on the planet, and it's worth, anywhere upwards of, $30 an inch. But, it's just, and I get it, but, this is a good project. I don't know your company, and I apologize. I should have done more research, but I think these are the kind of things that we can't get out of our own way about. It drives me nuts that we've got somebody ready to spend this kind of money and bring this kind of job number to the city, and the cost for pre-treatment and all this other stuff. And the gentleman mentioned it earlier. If there's very little tax abatement and you're gaining 200 to 250 employees plus inventory tax, you're offsetting the cost. Somewhere in there's a number in there that the city's reaping a benefit for in the sales tax or the property tax or whatever it's going to be. State income tax is in there. I mean, all kinds of things. You're offsetting those costs. And if we have to hire more staff, 2 or 3 people, I know that's a hot button issue with the city. Apparently, it's not like we have money laying around, but I think this is where we got to figure this thing out, because I can't understand. I don't know where the disconnect. If we pursued you to build this facility and now all of a sudden you're not the happy shiny penny anymore, or whatever the situation has changed, I'd like to know more about it. And maybe, I can get with Matt if you can and all that, but I'm for this. I don't think there's a problem with it. I think the engineering that can be built internally by you guys, the professionals, to pre-treat and take care of that. I'm not worried about the water. I live in Shadow Creek. It probably drains to my backyard, or, whatever you want to call it.
It does go to Reflection Bay.
Yeah, it goes to Reflection Bay. So it does literally almost go to my backyard. So I have no problem with it. I mean, Mitsubishi across the street builds the biggest turbines you've ever seen on the planet. Right? They have to bring the biggest trucks. We had to overbuild the road behind them so they could get those trucks in there. You don't hear a peep from them. And they deliver those things all over the world for every oil company on the planet. So I don't see the issue. And somewhere there's a disconnect between PEDC, the city, staff, us, and hopefully the council will wrangle this all up too. But we've got to get out of our own way. We have somebody wanting to spend some good money. I think this is the kind of product, the elevations you showed. I mean, you can go through Stafford. There's some very, very nice new buildings, and then you have some that have been there for 50 years, and they're not safe. They're not good looking, but that's not what you're building. You're building a good product. You're putting something good on the ground. So, get over the screening part of it. We got to get around that. We got to get over the water treatment situation. So, I'm sorry to kind of go off on a.
No, that's fine.
But anyways, I would be for it. I think there's an issue there with, I don't know what's happened, why this no longer fits to this magic zone, that character zone, and I think we've got to figure that out.
If I may add, the neighbor due south of us is also in the, as you call the special character zone. They are a manufacturer. They are not a science and technology center. They are a manufacturer. So.
I'll go ahead. I'm very confused from staff report. As staff began talking and I saw the renderings and what the business was, when I think of Kirby area, I think of urban and light industrial, and light industrial was even the language that was mentioned in the presentation. So when we got to the conclusion that the recommendation was that staff would not recommend approval, I absolutely didn't understand, because this seems like like the type of business that would be perfect for that area. So very confused as to why we're not recommending approval for this. And as far as the approved pre-treatment plan, whoever comes in that has this kind of industry, if this is something that we'll have to deal with, I don't think that should be a basis for rejecting this business for this area, because anybody could come in and need a potential pre-treatment plan, and because they need that and it's costly, are we always going to be prepared to reject them coming in as a business? So I don't think that to be a proper basis for not recommending approval for this. And I also, the fact that they're already doing business, they've talked to the neighbors. I was just very confused. I was prepared to hear that this recommendation would be approved. And I am concerned about where the disconnect is, because the way that they're explaining it and what that area is known for and currently exists in, they seem to meet the character of the area. So I'm just very confused as to how we got to staff recommending that this approval not be accepted. And I would also say, in terms of the recommendations, the conditions, I agree with all of those except for number 3. To the point of screening, when you go in that area, it's not really screened. So I don't agree that additional screening would be needed all over for that area when you're riding through and it looks like a light industrial area. So I know that was going on, but I really would be interested in where the disconnect exists, because to me, this makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Instead of going all over that again, I agree with these two, so.
I would say I agree with all of the comments that have been made. I'm not worried about the wastewater treatment. You said you're federally regulated, which means you have to meet very high standards before it ever gets discharged into the community. I know that TDEC will require the city to do additional monitoring to make sure it doesn't go there. But I have no concerns with what you're discharging because of the federal requirements.
Commissioner Henricks here. I'm just gonna say that I agree with all the comments that have been made on the panel.
Not so fast. No, kidding. So a question for you. You came into town, you found the parcel, I think you said, and then you got with the PEDC and you had the discussions and I know there's been a lot of things that happened from that point to this point. Were you ever shown any other parcels in the city of Pearland?
Yes, sir.
Maybe the 35 corridor?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not asking a loaded question. For my general knowledge, though, because we're going through a comprehensive plan update now, why is this more attractive to you than the 35 corridor?
I felt like the 35 corridor, it was going to be a step up from where we were, but it wasn't going to be the complete step. You know, when I look around on 35, I see restaurants, I see, you know, storage businesses, I see gas stations, and you know, our customer base is more familiar with, you know, the Anderson Housers and the Mitsubishis and Tool Flow style buildings. And
So you want to go where they are,
correct.
and that's along the Beltway for now.
Correct.
That's interesting. From a wastewater standpoint, I understand the TPDES and the TCEQ. I get all that. And the federal is the EPA, and the TCEQ handles things for the EPA as long as they don't screw it up, right? Do you all monitor your outflow?
Yes, sir.
And is that sampling?
We actually provided samples from our outflow monitoring to the city of Pearland.
Okay. And is it I know there's 100 different methodologies of sampling, right? From stormwater to sheet flow versus drain and all that's, I used to pick them out in the middle of the rain after a 2-inch rain of this and that. If it was on an even numbered day and an odd numbered month and I had to hold a lightning rod while doing it, I get all that. My question is, do you all monitor on a continuous basis, or is it just every so often? Is there
Yes,
a
sir.
periodic time?
It's almost every week we pull a sample.
Okay, so
Unless there's a personnel issue or an equipment issue or something, but it's a weekly self-monitoring that we do.
Okay.
And at the end by the 15th of the following month, I'm required to submit and sign off on the test results that I send into the city of Houston.
Okay, so that's not through the STEERS program. It's
No, the STEERS is going to be your stormwater.
Got it. I've been away from it too long.
There's days I wish I could be away from it.
So do you all ever recycle any of the wastewater, or do you have a filtration system or any kind of a treatment program prior to releasing, or are you just trying to?
Oh, no, it goes through a pretty extensive treatment program.
Okay.
So we're taking metals out of solution. So they're dissolved metals in the wastewater stream. We take them out of solution, put them in a filter press. They turn into solid waste. They're manifested. They're hauled off. So yeah, we do a pretty extensive pretreatment.
Does that go off as a hazardous waste? And I'm asking that by definition, you know, of the EPA hazardous waste.
It's a hazardous waste.
One of the K codes or D codes?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's metal hydroxides is what it's classified as.
Specific treatment then. I mean, a specific way. And I'm sorry to get into the weeds. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking out loud, is there anything we can do as a city, or you can do to help the city if we have these divergent stories that, you know, that we're hearing tonight, right?
I think Lisa and I's story has been convergent. I mean, I think we both agree on everything we've said, right? Lori, I'm sorry.
So that's true. I mean, so he is going to be required to do sampling. The city will also have to do, once TCEQ requires to develop an approved program, we also will be required to do sampling on a routine basis and submit those results to the state. So it's he's basically, everything that he's saying is true. I mean, so he's not misleading in that sense.
And I didn't mean to insinuate one party's line or the other. I heard you saying that goodness, we're going to not have to only sample the one plant, the reflection bay, but all 5 plants.
Initially, correct. To develop local limits, we have to look at all 5 treatment plants, because the state does not just recognize the one plant. They recognize it's a whole.
It's the city as a whole.
It's the city as a whole.
All the processes. But you just said initially, so if they're all good, they'll taper down then to.
So when looking at the local limits, when you just establish local limits, it's for the whole city. So basically, you have to update your ordinance, and and every industry will have to comply with those limits. So if there's other industries that are here or come to develop, they'll have to fall under those same requirements. And so the local limits would, they would have to meet that for that specific industry going to specifically Reflection Bay. So it's, like I said, it's industry specific, but we do have to look at all 5 plants.
Got it. Thank you. And thank you all. I guess everyone stated their opinion that if I could count, I think there's 6 votes for. I'm on the fence, but I'd probably be a 4 after hearing all the both sides and all the indicate the information. I would like if some of this came from the disconnect came from the EDC, it'd be nice if they were here tonight to make a presentation themselves. I would like to have heard their opinion here and maybe the reason there is answer some of the disconnect issues. So again, if there's nothing further, we got one more.
Just to be clear, I didn't say no. I asked questions. I was unclear. I respect staff's opinion, and that always leads me initially. My thoughts and staff's opinion. So I was absolutely confused on why staff recommended no. And with Lori being here, I expected to hear something different from her when asked the question about why we need a pre-treatment plan. So just being clear, I was asking questions for my clarity, not trying to make you the devil or anything. So that's all.
So council always wants us to say whether we favor or not.
Andrew Earls, yes.
Okay. Well, that's basically it from us. We don't have an official vote. We discuss. Shelby is kind enough to take copious notes, and then they give those to council, and sometimes we get contacted by council. What did you mean by this and that? But usually they take our notes or take Miss Shelby's notes, and then and they'll take that into consideration when they hear you. I think you said it was 2 or 3 weeks from now. It was the first light of a long night.
11th, I believe.
All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 6 under new business, and that is again another CUP, no voting, just discussion for application 22-15, and this is again a public hearing, a request by Duplantis Design Group, PC, represented by Tyler Eaton, applicant on behalf of BW Shadow Creek LLC owner, for, find the right page, for approval of a conditional use permit, CUP, for auto repair, minor use, auto repair minor use on approximately 0.7308 acres of land within the commercial district of the Shadow Creek Ranch Planned Unit Development, or PUD. The general location is 11219 Shadow Creek Parkway, and we don't need a motion. We're just discussing. So staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application will be discussed by Patrick. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Martin. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. As Martin mentioned, my name is Patrick Bauer with the Community Development Division, Planning Department. And the request before you tonight is for a conditional use permit, as mentioned, for auto repair minor use, specifically to accommodate a minor auto repair facility, providing oil changes, tire repair changes, and other minor auto repair services. The future land use for the site is retail, offices, and services. And sorry for one moment before we move forward. Staff sent notices to all property owners within 200 feet, and also the applicant posted a sign on the property. And to date, staff has received no comments in favor or against the request. So as mentioned, this property is a part of the Shadow Creek Ranch planned development or planned unit development, and the specific based zoning for the property is commercial, as well as the properties to the north, east, and west are also have a commercial based zoning in the Shadow Creek Ranch PD. And then the zoning of the property to the south is general business. And then also surrounding the property is a consistent zoning future land use, as is retail, offices, and services. Kind of looking at this map, this is the location of other auto repair locations in the area, and this is just focusing in on within 1 mile. It's kind of hard to see, we'd have to zoom in, but it's about 2 buildings down. There is another auto repair minor use, and these numbers include all auto repair uses, so even if they're minor or major. So within 1 mile is 2 auto repair locations, within 2 miles is 7, and then within 3 miles is 10. And that also, within 2 and 3 miles also includes some auto repair uses that are just north of the Beltway. So they would technically be outside of Pearland, but still location-wise, they're within that 2 and 3 miles. And kind of getting into the history of the property, it kind of has an interesting history because it changed the configuration of the property. So originally, this subject property was annexed into the city in 1997, and I believe the Shadow Creek Ranch PD was made about 1999. And then the original Lot D was actually platted in 2007, and that original lot was about 1.401 acres. And moving forward to 2017, a conditional use permit for a car wash self-service was approved for the original Lot D, so it was approved for the 1.401 acre lot. And then kind of the next thing that we know is that in 2018, it was developed on the existing Lot D, the kind of orange peach tinted color was developed with as an RB's with the intention of platting. A plat ended up not being completed from our records, or not a new plat. And then it kind of left this 0.730 acre yellow parcel, which then in 2020, that yellow portion came back for a conditional use permit for auto wash self-service, which was approved by City Council on the subject property. And to our knowledge, both 2017 CUP and the 2020 CUP expired without the property being developed upon. So kind of just an aerial of the property. It's kind of faint, but the yellow is, you can kind of get a sense of the undeveloped lot that's the subject property. And to the north is a office use. It's a 4-story office building that we'll show a little further in the street view. And then to the east and west is 2 fast food restaurants. That Arby's, that was a part of the original lot, is to the east. As you can see, it shows as undeveloped, but that's because it was recently developed. And then to the south is predominantly a drainage area, but also an undeveloped area that's right next to the school. And then kind of going forward to the actual view of the property from Shadow Creek Parkway. And this is actually the view from the access drive that is inside of the property, but you get a sense of this is the undeveloped parcel, and then it's not that far off, and then you get a sense of where the office building is. And then going a little further, just to the north is the office building. It's a 4-story office building. And then to the south, across Shadow Creek Parkway, is the drainage and undeveloped land. And then to the east and west is the Sonic fast food restaurant, and then to the east is the Arby's. And so this is the overall site plan, and we'll kind of zoom in a little closer, but Shadow Creek Parkway will be at your bottom. You have the access drive on the left portion that goes up to the office building, but in the middle you see a 5,238 square foot building that'll house the auto repair facility, and it'll house the bays they have and the office space that they have. So just kind of zooming in a little closer just to give you a sense of where things are. First off, facing kind of towards Shadow Creek Parkway will be the 3 oil change bays, which will be served by a 3x3 basically stacking area where cars will wait before going in. And then off to the closer to Shadow Creek Parkway will be the 5 tire service bays that will service the tire changes, and I'm guessing also the auto repair, other like auto repair services that are being provided. And then here we get a sense of they provide a landscape plan for the property, and this includes the shade trees that go along Shadow Creek Parkway, as well as any shrubs that are used to screen the parking, as well as if you go further back into the property, they have different tree islands where they provide trees within the property. Here's an elevation from the west, so if you're looking from Sonic, this is the view of those 5 tire change service bays. And this is the view from Shadow Creek Parkway, the south elevation, showing those oil change bays. And then to the north, this would be looking from the office towards the building. And then looking at kind of a 3D image, the top one is kind of what you would see from Shadow Creek and the Sonic area, more of to where your bays are and where the cars are actually entering for the oil changes and the tire repair services. And then the low rendering is more of the back of the building, kind of looking from in between the RVs and the office space. So looking at the review criteria, the request meets the future land use plan for the retail office and services, as well as the thoroughfare plan, as Shadow Creek it's designated as a major thoroughfare and it has sufficient width. It also, at the time of building, it also be required to meet the Shadow Creek Ranch PD, and then there's also the city, or the subject property has access to city utilities along Shadow Creek Parkway. So looking at the approval criteria, staff found that the requested CUP conforms with 4 of the approval criteria outright, and then 4 of the approval criteria conforms with conditions, and then 1 of them is not applicable. So looking at the staff recommendation, the proposed use meets the established criteria for approval of a CUP. As mentioned, it's consistent with the future land use plan, the thoroughfare plan, and the intent of the Shadow Creek Ranch PD. And staff recommends approval of the request with the following conditions. And the first condition relating to landscaping, the condition is that large shade trees shall be planted along the northwest and east property line to screen adjacent properties from the service bays. Large shade trees shall be provided with the total caliper inches to equal 1 inch for each 15 feet of lot length/width, with a minimum planting of 2 inches. And then the second condition is that a continuous evergreen hedgerow with height at least 4 feet shall be provided along the north and west property line to screen the view of service bays from adjacent properties. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant here, and does he wish to make a presentation? Well, you've had a long night, sir. Or sirs, plural, I guess. And would one of you be Charles Klein?
No.
Okay, my apologies. Oh, no, I'm sorry. John Davis? All right, gotcha.
My name is Tyler Eaton with the Plaintiffs Design Group, 14950 Heathrow Forest Parkway, Houston, Texas. I'm the applicant, the civil engineer for this project, and just open to any questions that the staff may have, and have some comments about the requirements or conditions that staff has outlined for us for this development. So some of the comments that we have are for the large shaded trees planted along the northwest and east sides of the development. We'd like to ask staff to keep in mind along the north side of the property, we are encumbered by a Kinder Morgan pipeline easement that does not allow for trees or shrubs to be planted within them. As you can see, looking along that entire corridor, there It's not a tree or a shrub in sight, so we just ask for that and that to be considered in those conditions. And there was language included. The proposed use could potentially impact the view for adjacent properties as the service bays face out towards Shadow Creek Parkway, as well as the office and the fast food restaurant to the west. So we agree with the requirements for landscaping along those areas of the property, but we are looking for further clarification for the large tree requirements along the east side of the property where there's no access to the bays. So I'll open it up to staff and council.
Thank you for that. Did you have something to say, sir?
My name is John Davis, 1880 South Park Drive, Birmingham, Alabama. I work for Express Oil Change. We're the ones that have the property under contract. First of all, I want to thank y'all. We have been working with staff for a month or two and had a great communication. We first presented a site plan that was different than the one you see now. And after communicating with staff, we understood more of the concerns that they had. So we completely redesigned the building. This is something that I don't think we've ever done. Maybe one time in our history where we've had an L-shaped building like this, but it works. So we've been able to kind of go through with our architects and civil engineer and redesign everything to make it work. And I think it actually looks pretty good. And we started in 1979. We have almost 400 locations right now. We are a growing company. We're very excited. It's been a really good time. We generate, out of those 3 service bays, we generate 74% of our traffic, those oil change bays. The 5 tire service bays, so you'll have, you have mainly your tires and your alignments and things like that, your state inspections going through there. So we don't generate that much traffic. We generate 53 vehicles per day. Open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Close Sunday. So, any questions you guys may have? I mean, we've got a lot of data to back up what we do. So, I appreciate your time.
Thank you for those comments, and we may have some questions and follow-up. Is there anyone, if that concludes the applicant's presentation, that moves us to persons wishing to speak for or against? I don't have anything, but is there anyone? All right, seeing no motions or no one running there to the podium, staff, commission, applicant discussions? Who wants to go first? Shall we start with this side?
Thank you for your comments and presentation. My issue is that there are 19 auto repair shops within a 3-mile radius. So to me, that's a saturated market. And also on the immediate side of that, Sonic is Max's Auto. And I know that they do more than your minor auto repair. That's more on the major side, but you can go there and get minor needs met as well. So I guess I'm just wondering why that this industry in that location with so many already in the area.
Absolutely, that's a good question. So the vast majority of our customers, 74%, we build a pit. So basically, it's a drive-through business. In essence, it's a 10-minute oil change. So that's what we focus on. Somebody like a Max Auto is not focused. They don't have the pits. That's not their main point of business. So they have a lot of other items they're doing. So what we feel like is we're not really competing head-on with them. We're in there we're basically trying to get people in and out. We value their time more than anything. And so we're trying to get people in and out, back on the road for something nobody really wants to do. At the end of the day, you don't want to get your oil changed. So we value people's time. That's why we designed the entire business model. That's how we designed the entire building. So As far as the other auto service, you're correct. There are other auto services out there, but we focus on an area that really is the in and out mainly, and then we add tires. We add some small, quick items. We do not want to have you there. We don't want you to drop your car off and wait a day to get it fixed. If it's for tires, we want to have those tires there. We want to have them within 15 minutes in that store, so we can get you in and out of that as well. So nobody wants to buy new tires either. So we're trying to make it as painless as possible. So that's why when we went to look for a place for our business, we looked at that. We have extensive models where we pull sales. You can buy all the data online and have it packaged. So where customers are, what they're spending their money on as far as auto service goes. And we kind of base everything, our modeling off of that. And this models very well. So we feel like there's customers out there for this.
And I completely agree with you concerning Max's Auto, but even within a mile radius of you, there's a 5-minute oil change. There are different facilities and companies that have that same idea and concept of in and out. You don't want to be there all day, maybe 15 minutes max. So aside from the max, with your data, I'm still wondering why this industry with so many already surrounding you.
So we are the most successful quick service oil change in the nation. So when we look for real estate, we look at traffic patterns, where customers are coming from, where they're going, and then we model that based on that. We model where we put our business based on that. I can't really get into too much detail, but there is the need there for this type of business.
Thank you.
So just for clarification, though, I asked for the map to be pulled up, and thank you. The one next to you, I mean, it's like 2 parcels down. This other dot on the 288 on the east side, that actually is, although it fits under minor auto repair, that's if you have a wreck, you take your car there and they do Service King. So they don't do oil changes. They don't do tire work.
Do that.
No. They do painting. And when your son hits a tree in the neighborhood, I'm just saying, they could fix it.
We can't do that.
How many employees y'all gonna have?
Start out with 8, and depending on the store, we may end up with upwards of 10.
Okay, that's all. I'm for it.
I really don't have any questions. I think it fits well in the neighborhood. I would be for it.
Tell me again, how many of y'all have built of these facilities?
So we own roughly almost 400.
And you said that this was the only one you've ever had to tweak the design?
Oh, no. Oh, okay. This is the only one that's laid out like this.
As an L-shaped? Is it because of
that style of entrance?
Squeezing it on a lot, or kind of positioning it on the lot? I shouldn't say squeeze, but
correct. So number 1 is lot requirements, and number 2 was city ordinances that required the stacking area.
Okay.
On the oil change side.
Is that unique to another?
That actually is pretty unique. Yes.
Just curious. I live over there, so I'm good with it. We appreciate y'all coming to town, or the chance for you guys to come to town.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hendricks, I'm for it.
Commissioner Earls, I'm actually a bit torn, not because of how many are in the area, just because it'll only, moving forward, be an oil change facility. If you go out of business, heaven forbid, that's my train of thought.
So, kind of going back to the going out of business thing, we've closed 1 store since 1979. So we hope that never happens. And since we do have the numbers, we've had a 34% growth in sales this year, from last year to this year. We're on that trajectory to keep going. So, you know, I think that the company is incredibly solid, and you know, we've closed one store since 1979. And that was in around 97, I think, somewhere along those lines. So, and that being said, if that were to ever be the case, there's 5 service bays there. And so that could also be, you know, an auto service facility of any type.
Congratulations. Welcome to Pearland.
I can appreciate your comments with the pipeline there. I think Buc-ee's themselves, that actually is the last Buc-ee's that's not on a freeway, by the way. And I think they came to Alabama, by the way. I would say that their store and the gas station aisle and such, that was all predicated, the locations there, from that same pipeline, as well as some of the things along the Kroger facility. So everybody along that north of McHardt, or it's now Shadow Creek Parkway, everyone along there has had to deal with that. So I feel your pain there, and I wouldn't ask you to plant trees where they don't allow you to plant trees. So I'm sure City Council will take that into account, and I'm sure staff, after hearing those comments, will readjust the request and where to place them and such, or give you some latitude thereof. I'm for it. You know, I tend to be more of a market person that says, you know, let the competition figure out who goes where. I do have a concern, though, when someone does go out of business. You know, if it's a church is a perfect example, and it's a terrible thing for me to say, but when they sell or they grow too big and they move on, it's very difficult to fill that spot. I do hear what you're saying, though. You have bays, and another use might want those, and that's probably what would happen. So I'd be for it, and staff's recommendation was for it. So I think enough said, unless anybody's got something else to add. I wish you the best, and I wish you the best in front of council as well. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the last of the conditional use permits. Item number 7, under Roman numeral 6, commission input and discussion only of the CUP application CUP 22-18. And this is a request by MSJ Business Group LLC, applicant on behalf of Shadow Creek Investors, owner, for approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the expansion of an existing liquor store use on approximately 6.944 acres of land within the Struhall Kroger Planned Development PD DeWitt. That is the general location of 11041 Shadow Creek Parkway. Since we don't need a motion, staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. For this one, I'll turn it over to Sameen.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Chairman and Planning and Zoning Commission members. This request is for approval of a conditional use permit to allow for expansion of an existing approved liquor store in the planned unit development. The property is currently developed at the Shadow Creek Marketplace at the northwest corner of Highway 288 and Shadow Creek Parkway. The proposed expansion is absorbing the adjacent suite, doubling the size of the business. The application that was originally made in December 2021 to expand the liquor store was denied, as expansion to approved CUP is required reapproval of the CUP. So far, staff has not received any comment, has not received any written or any comments or phone calls in favor or against the proposed CUP. This is the aerial zoning map of the proposed location of the property, and then shows that it's located in PUD, Plan Unit Development. This is the map of future land use map, and as you can see, it shows that it's located in 288 Gateway, and it's suitable for retail. This is the existing side plan of the suite. And as you can see on the right side, this is the proposed floor plan joining these two suites together. Suite A and B. This map shows the existing liquor store within 1 mile radius of the proposed CUP. There's only one liquor store within 1 mile away from this liquor store. And these pictures show the location of Big Bottle, the liquor store in the marketplace, Shadow Creek Marketplace. As for the conforming criteria, the use conforms with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. Shadow Creek Parkway is designated as major thoroughfare with sufficient width. The property has been developed, so it's platted and has access to water and sewer line. The property, the staff finds that the proposed expansion of the liquor store meets the established criteria for approval of a CUP. The proposed use is also consistent with the policies of the comprehensive plan, including the future land use map and the thoroughfare plan. That's why staff recommends approval of the proposed CUP. And that concludes the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If nothing further from staff, then the applicant, if the applicant's here and would like to make a presentation. You weren't feeling lonely before, but you're looking pretty lonely out there right now.
My name is Thomas Stephen, 11041 Shadow Creek Parkway, Suite 102, Pearland, Texas 77584. We are planning to expand our store. The next door, we took the next door because our the first store is very small. It's inconvenient for the customers. That's why we are planning to take the next door and make it one unit, like a 102. So that is why I'm here. Any questions?
We may have some questions for you later on.
Okay.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't see a need to ask if there's anyone wishing to speak for or against because there's no one else here. So I'll move on to the next item, which is the staff, commission, and applicant discussion. So commissioners, anyone want to go first?
It's an expansion. I'm for it.
Commissioner Henricks, it's an expansion. I'm for it.
I would just ask, I know you know that on the drawing board is the specs in the parking lot that's going in where the Fuddruckers and Lubies is currently. Okay. You know that's it's your decision. You expand. I'm just want to make sure you're fully aware. Your expansion is fine with me. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Earls, I'm for it.
I agree. I'm for it.
For it. Commissioner Boswell.
When we went out of order, I lost who all said something. I have no problem with this. I just had one question on the new design. You have a demising wall still showing there, partially. Is that? And I tried to see what this drawing was to the right. Is that kind of a half wall?
Yeah, we are not taking fully. It's half. Only half we are taking.
All the way, height-wise, all the way?
All the way up.
Okay. So you can use it for shelving and stuff like that. Okay. I was trying to make sense of why that would be there, kind of a visual obstruction to keep an eye on your customers, but there's other methods for that. I'm for it. And I wish you the best of luck. I always appreciate a business in Pearland, and then when they decide to expand instead of move away, I'd like to see what we can do to help those out. Thank you, and thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you very much.
You win. You're the last one here. or you lost, right? Thank you very much. And you'll go now in front of City Council here in the next few weeks, and I'm sure staff will let you know that. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's the end of new business, and that brings us then to item 7, which is discussion items. We have a commissioner's activity report. No, I mean, that's our time to say what we want to say. It's been a long night. If I could say just a couple things here real quick. No meeting tonight, no meeting on July 4th. The next meeting is July 18th. And I do want to have a conversation with us another time about the land use plan that's part of the comprehensive plan. I really want us to take a bigger role. I talked to the mayor tonight, and they're not in a hurry to have it back. They want us to finish, and they know it's budget season coming up, so they're not in a hurry. But I think we should have an offline conversation. And one last little thing that just kind of a shake of heads or a thumbs up or thumbs down. And Lawrence, you can tell me if this is legal. The mayor doesn't read into the record each one of these items like I do, and it's kind of boring and monotonous, and I think it's a good opportunity. He always just asks someone else to read them, and I think it'd be a better opportunity for you guys to read them into the record, unless there's a legal issue that says I would have to. I can't believe that would be the case.
No, sir.
Okay, so unless somebody has and please let me know if somebody has that fear of reading out loud or, doesn't want to. I'm more than happy to honor that, but otherwise, I don't know why we wouldn't pass that around, and that's all I have. If anybody else has anything?
With that, I'll read number 8, adjournment.
Can I say just one last thing? I just wanted to let y'all know that we will begin the duo enrollment for y'all's emails, so be expecting an email from me tomorrow. It's the 2-factor authorization that I was talking to y'all about. I just wanted to give y'all a little warning.
Thank you. All right, it's 10:23, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.